In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create this amazing looking kitchen in Blender. So before we go any further, smash that subscribe button as it helps out the channel a lot. So without further ado, let's get started. So to begin with, delete the light and default cube. Add in a plane. Scale it up by 4 on the y-axis and 2.5 on the x-axis. Go into edit mode and select all 4 edges and extrude them on the z-axis by 2.4, which is the average ceiling height. You can do 2.6 if you're fancy and everything, but like 2.4 is the most common one. That's what I'm going to be using. Then place the camera where you can see all the walls that you want to be in your frame. What I like to do is just place my view where I want my camera to be, and then press Ctrl Alt and 0, which will snap the camera to my view. So let's start by adding in a window to let some light in. Switch to view to rendered view, and before we add in a window, we need to set up some lighting. I'm gonna be using an HDR because it's accurate and it's easy, and plus it gives a free scenery, so we don't have to model things outside of the window. Then just go ahead and add in an HDR image. I'm gonna leave the one that I'm using down in the description box. So now it's time to add in a window. First go into edit mode and add in the loop cut near the ceiling. Then add another loop cut like so. Then select this face and extrude it slightly outwards, and then just delete the face afterwards. Before we go any further, set the render engine to cycles and enable viewport denoising. So if you have an objects compatible graphics card, it will automatically use that for denoising. Otherwise the denoising is going to be a lot slower and you're better off just disabling it. Back to the window. Select your room and tap into edit mode. Select the floor face where your window should go, and then press Shift S and press cursor to select it. Then tap out of edit mode. Now in object mode, go to the top left corner and under the edit menu, click preferences. Then under add-on, search for ArchiMesh and enable that add-on. This add-on will allow us to add objects like windows without us modeling them, which is really handy because modeling windows is a pain in the backside. Then when you have enabled the add-on, press Shift A and then under Mesh, and then under the ArchiMesh menu, select Rail Window. Press N, and under the Create tab you will find all of the properties for the window. The first thing to adjust is the rotation, so rotate the window by -90 degrees, which will orient it the correct way. Then under window size, move the sliders until the window fits in the hole that we've created in the room. So the good thing about these windows are that they come included with material, so we don't have to spend time on that. Now we need to add some shelves and tables to the kitchen. Before that, just press Shift S and click cursor toward origin. Then press Shift A and add in a cube. Select the cube and move it up on the Z-axis by holding down Control until it snaps to the floor. Then while the cube is selected, right click and under Set Origin, click Origin to 3D Cursor. Now when you scale it on the Z-axis, so the height of it, it will still remain on the floor. Once you've scaled it on the Z-axis, you should also scale it on the X and Y axis until the size is what you want. After, go into edit mode and move the face on the Y axis. Also add a loop cut to the end and extrude the face a bit outwards to give it a better look. Now we also want to have some shelves, drawers and cabinets in the back. So just duplicate the shelf that we already have and move it to the back against the back walls. In edit mode, move the last face on the y-axis a bit longer to the right. That way it doesn't have the exact same length. Then select the extruded faces and delete them. Then select the edges around the hole and press F to create a new face. Now select the edge loop and double tap G to move the edge loop a bit towards the middle. Select the top face and extrude it on the Z-axis to create some tall cabinets at the end. Now I also want to have some small cabinets and a small shelf on top going across. So add a loop cut and add another loop cut but a bit lower. Bevel the selected edge loop. Then I add yet another edge loop because we don't want the shelf and cabinet to be as wide as the rest of the shelf. Then just select the faces and extrude them until they are as long as the shelf underneath. I think it will look a bit nicer with a tall cabinet at the end as well, to support the shelves and the small cabinets we have put on top. So I extrude the last face and select this top face, add and extrude them to be as tall as the upper cabinets. Just move these faces into the tall cabinets. Now let's add some detail to the shelves. Add 5 loop cuts like to the front part. Select the front edges and bevel them slightly and extrude them inwards. And that is the drawers for like the front shelf. With the back selected in edit mode, add 2 loop cuts to the tall part. And before we go any further, tap back into object mode and apply the scale to the object. Then select all these edges and bevel them and extrude them inwards. For the rest of the cabinet, select these 2 faces and press I to inset them slightly, and then select the other faces and inset them too. Now select all of these faces and extrude them a bit out. Then add loop cuts here and here, and yet another loop cut, but now horizontally. Now switch the view to rendered view. I forgot this before, but if you have a graphics card, you should switch your device to GPU compute in the render settings. Now in edit mode, select this edge loop and double tap G and move the edge loop up a bit. Then select the faces and inset them. After, inset these faces down. Add an edge loop around these faces and select the faces around the inset part and move them inwards. Now you can play around with the edges and adjust them to your liking. Select these edges and scale them down on the y-axis and invert the face to make a digital display for the oven. So now it's actually a good time to add a floor texture. So go ahead and add a wood texture to the cube. I'll leave the one that I used in the description. Now add a mapping and a texture coordinate node to both textures and scale them down until they look good. I found that 6.5 looks good on my room. Now select the room and tap into edit mode. Select one of the floor faces and then under the mesh menu in the top left corner, then under select similar, click on normal and it will automatically select all of the floor. Then in the materials tab, create a new blank material. Let's call it walls. Now back in the 3D viewport, with the floor selected, press Ctrl and I, which will invert your selection, and then click assign on the wall materials, which will assign the wall material to everything but the floor. Now back in solid view, move the 3D cursor to the front of the oven by pressing Shift and then right clicking on the oven. Then press Shift A and add in a cube. Scale it down and move the cube a bit over on the y-axis. Now in edit mode, extrude the top face and add in a loop cut. Then extrude the face on the y-axis and add another loop cut, and then extrude the back face backwards into the oven. That's a simple handle we've modeled. Now duplicate the handle, place it on the tall cabinet like so, and duplicate it again to place it on the other cabinet as well. Now just duplicate the handle to all of the cabinets / drawers that you like. Now select the back shelf and tap into edit mode. Add 4 loop cuts to the long part and select all of the faces and inset them. And then press I to enable individual inset. Then select these edges and move them down. And select the main faces and extrude them forwards. Select the top faces and extrude them upwards. And extrude the front faces more to the front side. Now add loop cuts to the top part, inset these faces as well, and then just extrude them forward to give it a better look. Now on the right tall cabinet, add a loop cut to the height of the bottom shelf and then bevel it and then extrude it inwards. Now let's create a sink in the back shelf. So first add 1 loop cut in the front and 1 in the back. After, add another cut here and move the edge a bit to right. Then select these 2 faces and inset them, and these faces need to be inserted too. Then extrude all 4 faces down. Now you can adjust the faces to your liking. Invert these faces and select the inner loops. Of the faces and then move move them down to create like this edge around the sink. Now for the water tap, select these two faces and press Shift S and select cursor to select it. And in object mode, add in a cylinder. Scale it down to the preferred thinness and extrude it on the Z-axis. And move the top face a bit on the X-axis. Now extrude once more and rotate it a bit, and repeat this process for some time until like this end of the cylinder is aligned with the X-axis. Then extrude the front face. Add a subdivision surface modifier and set the level to 2. On the front face, add a loop cut close to it, and then insert it a bit. Towards the bottom, add a loop cut, and that should be enough for that. Now add a loop cut and select some of the bottom faces and extrude them. Select the outer edges and bevel them. So now I want to have an induction here. So select these faces, invert them, and scale the selected faces down to a preferred size and extrude them on the Z-axis. For the exhaust, go into edit mode and set the 3D cursor to the faces, and in object mode, add in a cube. Move it up on the Z-axis and scale it down on the X and Y-axis by pressing S and then Shift Z, which will scale it on every axis but the Z one. Then in edit mode, select the bottom face and extrude it a tiny bit. Then while having the small side faces selected, press Alt E and select extrude faces on normals. Also scale it down on the X-axis and up on the Y-axis. Then select the top edge loop and scale it a bit. Just adjust the size to your liking. Now it's time for some lighting. Select all of the back shelf and move it a bit forward. In edit mode, select the back face row, duplicate it and rotate it at 90 degrees. Now in the materials tab, create a new material. Set the surface to emission and make sure to separate the duplicated part by pressing P and then selecting selection. Then change the shell's material back to wall and keep the separated part an emission shader. Now adjust the strength of the emission shader to your liking. Duplicate the light and move it up on the Z-axis behind the top shelf. Select the front shelf and tab into edit mode. Select the bottom row of faces and in the materials tab, add an existing material by pressing that little plus button up in the top, and then under the drop down menu, select the existing light material. While having the bottom row of faces selected, assign the light material to them. Now it's time for some extra lighting. First add in a cylinder and scale it down on the Z-axis and move it out of the room. Then in edit mode, go into the front view and then turn on extrude view and delete half of the vertices. Then add a top face and extrude the back a bit further. Add a face to the back and delete the top ones. Scale it down on the Z-axis a bit further. Now add a subdivision surface modifier and bevel these edges slightly to make it look a bit better. Add a loop cut in the middle and press F to add a face. Now move the lamp back in the room and press number pad period to focus on it. Scale it down and set the origin to geometry. Then place the lamp on the back wall, maybe just scale it up a bit on the X-axis. Now for the materials, add a wall material to the light and then tab into edit mode and select the center face and assign the light material to it. Just duplicate the lamp and move it over on the X-axis to have a bit more lighting. Now to the materials. The first material is going to be a matte black material. So add a new material and select the front cabinet and all of the other faces that you want to be matte black and assign the material to them. Now for the material itself, we will choose a color that is close to black but not entirely black. Turning down the roughness, I'll also be selecting parts of the back shelf that I want to be matte black and assign the material to them. Then add a new material called reflective black, which I will make completely black and turn the roughness down to near 0. I'll add that material to like the induction plate and to the oven glass. I'll then add a new material called dark metal, which will be a bit lighter color than matte black and it will have the same roughness, but the metallic and specular values are gonna be at 1. For the handles, I'll add another material called light material with the properties that are shown on the screen right now. Then I'll just keep adding the different colors to the different parts of the kitchen until it looked good. I also adjusted the spacing between the drawers because they looked a bit too big for me. So I actually ended up replacing the light metal material with a brushed metal texture. So if you want to replace it as well, just go ahead and add those textures to the material. So for all of the furniture and stuff, we could go through the hassle of modeling it all, but like that is too much work, and like this tutorial isn't like a modeling tutorial for like furniture and stuff. It's like layouting also the kitchen. So what I'm gonna be doing is using the Blender Kit add-on, and what this add-on allows you to do is basically like search for something such as a chair, and it will automatically like pull up some models of a chair. And the good part is it's all inside of Blender. You just have to click and it will automatically just load it up. So yeah, you'll just need to enable the add-on in the add-ons tab in your preferences. It comes pre-installed with Blender, so you don't have to install anything. So now I'm gonna be like searching up all of the stuff that I actually need. So first I'm gonna search up chair, and I'm gonna like import anything that's available with the free version, which meaning that there's no lock in the bottom left corner. So after, you can search up everything that you think will go well in this kitchen, such as some knives and stuff. So for some plates and bowls, I think it will be easier to model them ourselves. So first add in a cylinder, move it out of the room. Scale it on the Z-axis a lot, and now select the outer ring of faces and press Alt-E and select extrude faces along normals. Now turn the selected face up on the Z-axis. Add in a subdivision surface modifier and turn the level up to 2. Now select the inner face and bevel it. Now for the bowl, set the 3D cursor to the plate and add in a cylinder. Move it up and scale it on the Z-axis. Then select the bottom face and scale it down, and add a lot of loop cuts. Then select the middle edge loop and press O to enable proportional editing, and set the set the mode to sphere. Then scale the selected edge loop up until it looks kind of good. Then turn off proportional editing. Select the top edge loop and scale it up until it looks good enough. Then select the top face, inset it and extrude it downwards. And scale it down. Then in the modify stack, add in a subdivision surface modifier and turn the level up to 2. And shade smooth. Now in edit mode again, select the bottom face and bevel it slightly. Now it's just a matter of putting the plates and bowls where you like. I'll be putting them on the top shelf in the back. Now back to using Blender Kit to filling up the room with stuff. After that, you can position the camera where you like. And a tip, add some plants to the room. It gives like kind of a homey feel and a pop of color in this situation. So that's gonna do it for this one. If you thought that this video was helpful, make sure to leave it a like and subscribe to this channel, and maybe even share it. If you have some questions, you're more than welcome to comment down below or check out my Discord server. Link will be in the description for that as well. So I'll see you in the next one.